Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Tuesday, June the 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Welcome. Glad to see everyone here with us tonight. Madam Clerk, all commissioners are present, along with the county attorney, finance officer, county manager. I'll remind you at this time to please silence all your mobile devices. Take care of that, if you will, at this time, and remind speakers as you come to the lectern that is to my left tonight, be sure you turn on the microphone, and the red light should be on when you're making presentations. So please take care of that for us tonight. We are delighted to have Pastor Keith Barnett with Bridge Worship Center Ministries International to lead us in our invocation tonight, and then we have J. Iverson Riddle Development Center to lead us in the pledge tonight following the invocation. So I'll ask you all to stand, and Pastor, if you'll come and lead us in our invocation.
Father God, Lord, we just thank you tonight for this opportunity to come to you and ask for prayer and thoughts and ideas and protection. That God, that you be with us tonight. We ask you to give them the wisdom and the knowledge, and to give them the expression of the gratitude of what you can do for them, and how that we can be a blessing to one another. We ask you to bless them in the mighty name of Jesus. We ask you to protect our law enforcement and our first responders as they go through the county. We ask you to protect our county, God, from all the things that oppress it and come against it, God. Lord, we ask you to do all these things in the mighty name of Jesus, and we thank you. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you very much.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for its stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We're so delighted to have J. Iverson Riddle with us tonight. We're so happy to recognize an institution that's been in our community for so many years, and appreciate the wonderful work that they do for all of our folks that are there, and all those that help the lives of those that are part of that center. All right, item number 4 on the agenda tonight is approval of agenda. Gentlemen, you've had the agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. Item 5, we have no minutes for approval tonight. This will bring us right on into item 6, items for presentations. We have two items tonight. The first one comes from the recognition of Governor's Volunteer Service Award. This is going to be presented by Alicia Wilson from Volunteer Burke. Good evening, Alicia.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing us to come tonight and share these amazing individuals that make such a difference in our community. As you said, my name is Alicia Wilson. I'm President of Volunteer Burke and the Director of Volunteer Services at J. Iverson Riddle. And our Volunteer Burke team works extremely hard to make this event possible, and I would like for them to stand, please. Volunteer Burke. Okay. Award winners, when I call your name, please come up front. Karen Milner. Karen was sworn in as a guardian ad litem volunteer in 2011. She's committed to being a voice for abused, neglected, and dependent children in Burke County. She has advocated on behalf of 25 children over the past 13 years. Karen is a person who seeks to promote the welfare of others, a true philanthropist. Thank you. You can stand there. Walk and Roll Activities League. This was our group award. The Walk and Roll Activities League has provided social and developmental activities for individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities for more than 30 years in our community. T-ball is one of their main activities. The goal of the league is to provide community awareness of the abilities and not the disabilities of each individual. Thank you. Alan Polishek. Alan is a board member of Burke United Christian Ministries, a volunteer torchbearer of this special organization. He's been instrumental in reviewing policies, needed equipment, and program improvements. He also assists in meal prep and any other tasks that may be necessary. Alan is truly a valued volunteer for Burke United Christian Ministries. Thank you. Debbie Hawkins. Debbie was nominated by Kay Drong and the Animal Services Foundation. She served Burke County in many capacities as an animal supporter. She served as a member of the Burke County Animal Advisory Board since 2019. She's a founding member of Reason. To date, Debbie has fostered and rehabilitated and rehomed over 90 dogs and counting. They specialize in senior and end-of-life care animals that are difficult to adopt or foster. Debbie is a special volunteer to our animals and the community. Thank you. Gary Jennings. Gary, who began volunteering with Amorum, formerly Burke Hospice and Palliative Care, and Caldwell Hospice and Palliative Care in 2019, is also a veteran who dedicated 20 years of his life to the Air Force. Gary serves as a veteran volunteer with Amorum's Veteran Honoring Veterans program. He presents veteran patients with items thanking them for their service. He treats patients and their families with the best respect and kindness. Gary is a volunteer with a true mission for the service he provides. This year we had one special winner, and that would be Sonia Reed. Sonia is wearing the medallion. She is a medallion winner. Every year the Governor's Commission on Volunteerism and Community Service review team selects 20 of the best volunteers across the state to award the Governor's Medallion Awards. So this year, Burke County's American Red Cross nominee, Sonia Reed, was selected for this prestigious award. She began her service in 2022 and grew as a leader to serve, onboarding and placement of volunteers, and as the disaster team, action team supervisor, sheltering volunteer, and recognition and appreciation team member. She trains volunteers to respond at moments' notice to local disasters that they could be called upon 24/7. She goes over and beyond to organize teams, clarify responsibilities, and to recognize the teams for their hard work. She's dedicated to sharing her skills to support the organization and is always thinking of ways to make the experience more positive experience. We are excited and pleased to have Sonia as Burke County's 2024 medallion winner. I present to you the 2024 Governor's Service Award winners.
Guys, just stay right there for just a second. We have a gift we want to present to you. Of course, we'll come down and take a picture if we can. But let me just say, we can't overemphasize cannot overemphasize the importance of volunteerism in our community, what you guys do, and knowing a couple of you guys in particular, though your award comes for a perhaps specific job, I know that volunteerism just kind of permeates your life in many different ways, and though you might be recognized for one, I know that most of you, and I suspect all of you, volunteer in many, many other ways. And again, on behalf of the board, we appreciate all that you do and all the volunteers that you do. Hang on. Thanks to all those who are part of that effort. This brings us to item number 2, presentation tonight. Our fire marshal will be giving us the emergency management department update. That's Mr. Mike Willis, our fire marshal. He's all dressed up for us tonight, and another important piece of what goes on hour by hour and all the things like all of you guys do. We look forward to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We are very pleased and honored to be here tonight to give you just a brief update on what's been going on in our division and what we're doing. We hope that you find this information beneficial. Go back to your daily work and communicate with the citizens and our other staff. I'm not going to do that. So we want to bring to you as part of your strategic plan. Most of what we do occurs in the Public Safety 103, Public Safety and Well-being. However, we as a team, along with all the county teams, have some play and capacity in all 5 of those strategic plans. So we feel that our division is well represented all 5 of those. Our budget for 2024, you can see what that was. We have 4 full-time staff in our division. We do share an admin assistant with EMS division. 1 full-time dedicated emergency management planner. That position is due as of February 2023. And we pretty much sunk her head deep in the planning. That's where she's not got out of it. So she pretty much does that around the clock. We can take more home for her. So she's done an outstanding job. We're proud of what accomplishments she has made. There's 3 full-time fire engineers, including myself, Deputy Fire Marshal Robert Bishop, and our fire inspector Matt Chapman. The 3 of us work a rotating schedule and explain that a bit shortly. Just like to make a note that, regardless of what our budget says, we work as hard as we can to get what grant we need. This past year, we awarded a $195,689 capacity building competitive grant, $75,000 Homeland Security exercise grant. We received will receive about $57,000, give or take a little bit, depending on payment, for emergency management planning grant and a $10,000 local emergency planning grant. So we do get some grant funding. We have a little bit of leeway with it, but we're pretty stringent and tied directly to emergency management. Calls for service, some data we'd like to go over. This graphic is compiled with call data we started accumulating in July 1st of 2020, and we ran it all the way up to June 30th of 2023. We're going to try to keep this on a 3-year cycle because it changes from year to year. So the end of June this month, we will pull last year's data and all that compiled very well. Our office provides coverage 24/7, so there's one of us on call. This is an always call, working on the morning, following in the morning. We're on call 24 hours a day as well. There's 3 of us rotate, that means that 400 hours a year. That's how it works out. Our response protocol is today. We got a lot of just built in time. From the time we get the call, we get out before we get there. This data set does not include our fire protection. So we do several different things: fire investigation, fire protection, we coordinate the fire department, we do fire protection, fire. These numbers are calls for services went through the communication. Either being 911 or administrative line. Or another agency, the sheriff, somebody email or call, so that's our policy. So we're out quite a bit. You can see 7.3% of our calls at that period of time occurred outside of one business hours. We're out with the company. So our activity counts, we feel that our number of fire inspections is comparable to other jurisdictions. However, it can be somewhat skewed because there's probably very few that are actually set up the way we're set up to do fire inspections, fire investigations, and emergency management under one set of job duties. So it's a little wanky about how that works, but that's county's discretion on how they want to set it up. And that's the way we operate here. So we currently have 1,561 occupancies in Burke County that we inspect. Now this does not include the city of Morganton or the town of Valdez. They have their own fire inspector. They conduct their own inspection. The second graphic over there is our I'll call it our big count, our activity count for each month. As you can see that we're averaging just over 80 calls pretty much a month of activities that we do. Our next graphic here, this data is current up through April of 2024. We're trying to run this every couple of months or at least every quarter based on our how our inspection schedule's following, but this is our inspections as we see them in North Carolina. We're working on breaking this down even further. We're going to have to give a calendar year and a fiscal year report to Department of Insurance. This is something they're requiring now, so we're going to have to get our data drilled down a little bit more. But to start with, we work with the tax office. We got a listing of all the properties in North Carolina, or in Burke County, and we cut out by statute all the single-family dwellings because we do not have authority to inspect those, with the exception of like a daycare. So per Chapter 106 of the Fire Code, we have an annual inspection, a 3 6 months, and then by request. So typically, the higher the hazard, the more frequent the inspection. So what you see in the annual would be like our hazardous facilities, let's say SAF, Hexion, places like that either produce chemicals or has a high fire hazard based on their occupants. 2 years is something like a storage or traditional factories, that's a 2-year inspection. 3 years is your normal business. It's your hair salon, barber shops, convenience stores, and such as that. 6 months is our schools. Schools are inspected twice a year, have to be within 180 days of each other. So we inspect in the spring and the fall all the schools in Burke County. That's a state requirement. And then by request, we have, oddly enough, exactly 200. And that by request is foster homes. And those of us involved in that know that some people foster sometimes, not all the time. If they foster, they have to have an inspection annually of their home. So we do an annual inspection of those, and that number varies. But for this period, it just happened to be 200. So our overall percentage is 65%. That looks a little low to me. That's because this is a 3-year cumulative data. As we move forward, we think this number is going to change as we start rolling up. We actually think our number is a little bit higher on the 3-year. And then when we get through that first 3-year cycle, I think we'll see that go up significantly. But we feel pretty good about where we're at. We can always do better, and that's what we're striving to do, is to get better at it. We're still finding some buildings that have not been inspected. Oddly enough, that has occurred. 2016, when I started here, I was able to find records for less than 600 inspected occupancies in Burke County, and we're now at 1561. So we strive real hard to get out and find the buildings that's not been inspected and get in them or get them scheduled. So I think our team's done a good job of that. Doubled it in 8 years, so I'm happy. Emergency management, our core functions, you'll see a few of them listed here. Emergency management is really an umbrella term. We got our hands on a lot of stuff. We're now involved in stuff like cybersecurity and most recently elections. We now have to ramp up the staff and plan for election activities, which I never thought in my career I would ever see us having to learn about cybersecurity. That's not my cup of tea, but we got to know something about it. So we're involved in pretty much everything. State and local emergency management is authorized and operate under North Carolina General Statute 166A, which y'all are very familiar with. In a sentence, emergency management pretty much, when performed at its fullest intent and as good as it can be, we play some type of role in pretty much everything that goes on, both emergent and non-emergent. And it's a pretty big task. We could easily spend all day defining it, but we've got bigger fish to fry, better things to go to, so we'll skip a lot of that. Our purpose is to lead and direct in the preparation for, planning for, mitigation of, response to, recovery from any all natural and man-made hazard. So that's in a nutshell what we do. FEMA breaks down our roles into 15 different ESLs, or emergency support functions. The picture you see there is a command group of us that went during Hurricane Ian a couple years ago in Florida. We were sent down to supplement and operate as part of an incident management team. We got to spend a few days down there wrapping up some loose ends, and we do that everywhere. I serve on the state incident management team, and we get deployed often for hurricanes just to help supplement. And we get that back. You know, if we have a major event and I need help, I call for IMT, they send people here. So it's reciprocal. All emergencies begin local and they end local. So start to finish, it's our job to maintain that flow of resources, equipment and service through from the very beginning to the very end. While most emergencies are completed in a day, stuff like a hurricane or a major storm may go into weeks, months, years. Just recently, this past year, they closed out one of the hurricanes. I think we're up to 7 or 8 years now with that. has been open, so it can last a long time. This graphic is simply a breakdown of how we spend our time in emergency management. As you can see, planning is our biggest element. We spend a lot of time working on plans of some shape, form, or fashion. And it's not only our plans, we are tasked with reaching out to our business and industry, and we assist those with their plans as well. So we don't do them for them, but they'll come to us, review them with us, make sure that we can mesh with them, they can mesh with us, and that we're able to support them in a disaster. So a lot of time is spent in planning. Resource management, relationship building is probably the best means of success for emergency management as a whole. We are and should be expected to have, or at least have the ability and knowledge to acquire any resources justifiably needed in response and preparation for any type of emergency. And we strive real hard to do that. Emergency management resources, we've got a lot of stuff, and it's referred to in a lot of ways, but we'll use the word stuff. We got a lot. And when I say we got a lot, we as emergency management have a lot. We're blessed in Burke County. We've received a lot of grant funds to help get us some good equipment. However, our neighbors have fared just as well or better. And with our network, we can reach out across the state, and together, we work together to support our neighbors as well as ourselves when we need it. In 2018, this board appropriated funds for construction of an emergency management warehouse for us. This facility was completed in 2019. It's located at the Burke County landfill. Building serves as our central receiving and distribution point for emergency management. Prior to this investment, EM equipment was scattered across the county, much of it outside in the elements, and was obtaining quite a bit of damage just from being out there. We feel that this investment will allow us to maintain our equipment's lifespan and longevity to a much higher level than we ever have before, simply in lower maintenance costs, and that's already proved effective. The warehouse serves as our primary location for resource management and our equipment maintenance. We do a lot of maintenance on our own stuff. In 2019, we developed a standardized maintenance plan and record system for our equipment, and all equipment is maintained to factory manufacturer recommendations or the national standard, whichever is more stringent. Our fiscal stewardship, our team currently manages about under $40 million in assets dating back to 2004. To my knowledge, there's been no major equipment and very few minor equipment that has not survived since the post 9/11 grant funding that has come out for us for equipment. So that dates back 20 years, 20 plus years. Hats off to all of our employees prior that have since gone or retired in keeping this equipment, keeping it up, trying to maintain it, and trying to make the most of the investment for Burke County. So we're trying to carry that on and make that a common theme moving forward. Most of this equipment, roughly 90%, give or take a couple, was funded with some type of grant money. So I think that speaks volumes again, going back 20, 25 years of all our predecessors and how we've tried really hard and continue to try to maximize the efforts with as little taxpayer investment locally as we can make. A lot of our resources were obtained through the Domestic Preparedness Region grant program. It's part of the Homeland Security grant. We are a member of DIPR 8. I chair that committee. It's made up of 12 counties in this region. Ash, Watauga, up there down to Rutherford, McDowell, and us. So 12 of us get together about 3 times a year. We're usually, 20 years ago, we were funded in the millions. We're now down to 170,000. And you split 170,000 up in 12 ways, you don't have very much money. So what we do is we set our priorities, and we try to divvy that money up and put it where it's best utilized, but we all have access to it. So, give you one example, a couple of years ago, the need has always been for night vision goggles. They're extremely expensive. We put that in as a different project and requested it. We were awarded it. Burke County hosted that grant. We've got about $100,000 worth of night vision goggles, which equals 12 full sets of binocular or monocular. We can split them and make 24, or we can leave them like we are and we've got 12. Those are available to our Swiftwater teams, our law enforcement officers, and our entire region. We carry those with us. We've got them divided out between the three that's on call. We each carry 4 sets in our vehicles, so we're immediately deployable in 10 minutes anywhere that they're needed. And the other 2 boxes can come right behind them. As soon as I can make a phone call, they'll be on the way and we'll get those as well. So I think the sheriff can testify to one event that we had where they come in extremely handy, and someone was apprehended with the assistance of that, plus the drones that the sheriff's office has. So we work with everybody. It's not just fire and rescue we do. We try to aid as much as we can. One of the biggest projects we worked on this year is our radio replacement. I know Commissioner Carswell remembers the day when we started using Viper, and a lot of us almost lost our religion through that process, but it is getting better. It's a huge savings. When you look at it through the bottom line, the infrastructure provided by Highway Patrol in the state. We don't have to invest in the infrastructure of towers, equipment to make it work. We just tag on the use of it. We've worked with IT, management, our budget and strategy and performance team to try to develop a plan going forward and how we're going to deal with our radios, because we've never had them. So we spent a lot of time looking and analyzing this. Our two-way communications has advanced in the past 20 years to it's just like a computer now. You're essentially carrying a computer in your hand. So the lifespan of them, where they used to last 20, 25 years, no longer will do that. We're looking at 5 to 7 years, and then the technology's gone. It's already jumped to something completely different. So partially as a result of 9/11, a lot of things were put into place nationally to elevate public safety communications. And the Viper system in North Carolina is a repercussion of that. The first Viper radios were purchased in Burke County and implemented around late 2007. I was employed at college at that time, and to my knowledge, I had the first Viper radio come in Burke County. Shortly thereafter, the state if that's the term you want to use, they bought each county so many radios and divvied them out. So I think they had like, I don't remember how many, I think we got like 10 or 15 of the very first versions that we had ever seen of the Viper radio come out. All of those were implemented in EMS to start with, just to try to get used to it and see how it's going to work. EMS operated on VHF and the Viper network combined for a long time, and to a point we still do today, but we have tried to convert our county over time over to 100% Viper. We're up to over 95% coverage in the street. With the technology and the upgrades and the changes, it's a whole lot better than it used to be, Mr. Carswell, I promise you. It can always be better, but it's better than when we started, absolutely. So a lot of those radios that were purchased and bought in the late 2007 till 2012 or 13 have never been replaced. The technology's outgrown them. We've upgraded them, we've fixed them, we've done about everything we can do to them, and they're just at the end of their life cycle. So we're having to do some replacements. We think that we've got a plan going forward now that will keep the radios fresh, that will keep our responders able to communicate and get the services they need. So we feel this is probably one of the highest priorities for emergency services in our county, and we hope that we'll never have to come back to this this level of degradation again in our system. So as you can see, the county's putting a lot of money into it. We have got some grants to go to it. The county manager and his staff has worked extremely hard to get some discounts brought forward. And really, we're saving the county a lot of money at the end of the day. Our current division projects, we've got some. What you see here is certainly not inclusive of everything we're doing. It's just a snapshot. Just to go over them briefly, our Unifor Hazard Mitigation Plan. That's a FEMA required plan that's developed out of our 4-county region of Alexander, Caldwell, Burton, and Catawba. All the municipalities and county governments in those 4 counties come together and we develop this plan. It takes about a year to go through and get it all done. Then we bring it back to you for each governing body for approval and implementation. The data off of that is used for almost every grant that's out there for anybody for any reason. So it's a critical part of what we do. Our threat, hazard, and identification and risk assessment, that's something that FEMA has started requiring of local entities. There was a lot of talk for a couple of years about how we was best to do that as a state. The state's always been required to have one. Now we have to have it in order to apply for grant money. So everything that we do in a grant has to tie back to our threat, hazard, and identification and our Unifor Hazard Mitigation Plan. So we got that started a year before last. We finished one round, we started into the next round. So that's a continuous cycle. We have to do that every year. Your Unifor plan is every 4 to 5 years. And I think the last time y'all saw that hazard mitigation plan, it was like 1,200 pages or some foolishness. If I remember right, Commissioner Morley asked me if I read it, and I said I've read Burke County report, and that's the one I focus on. So it's pretty extensive, so don't let it blow your mind the next time you see it. Our continuity of operations plan, something I've been wanting to get started for a long time now that we have a planner. We've had the base work and the groundwork and the FEMA footprint for it in format. Marty is starting to work now on putting the pieces of that puzzle in while she's doing all this other stuff. So we hope to have a good plan to present to you once we get through all the departments and the county manager gives his seal of approval for it. We think we're going to have a good plan moving forward. Our school violence plan, we've always had one, but we've always thought it could be better. So we've worked with the schools, with EMS, with Sheriff's Office, Morgan Public Safety, to try to update our plans a little bit, make them a little bit more robust. So that project has been ongoing for a year. We're pretty close to getting through. We've got one exercise. We're going to do some more once we get a few more things in place. But we feel like that our school safety plan will be much better, much more robust going forward. So we're excited to get that finished up. Our emergency operation plan, that we're in that every day. We update that every year. It goes through a complete revision every 5 years. Very little has changed in our emergency operation plan, but just know that's kind of our operation book. If something happens in Burke County, that's what we put to work with. Our shelter enhancements, that's another thing we've been trying to push on a lot of grant money. The $178,000 we got last year on CBCG, all of that went to our shelter enhancements and our EOC upgrade. The shower restroom trailer is here. We have a 5-stall shower restroom trailer that will be used for shelter support or for training or missions that are essential to public safety. The unit cannot be used for general public to have as a restroom. We can't do that based on the way the grant's written, but it is for emergency use. So one of our biggest hurdles in our previous shelter setups was showers quite often, and a handicap shower especially. So this unit has 4 standard showers and 1 handicap shower. It's completely self-contained. If we want it to be, it's completely mobile and taken anywhere, set it up, and we have hot showers and restroom facilities for people. So we're very, very proud of that. The next thing that's supporting our shelters is our CASP companion animal shelter trailer. That trailer was supposed to be here this month. However, due to some production scheduling issues, they bumped it up to September. It will be September before we have that. That unit will be able to house about 47 animals. In an emergency shelter situation, a lot of people won't go to a shelter if they can't take Fido with them. So a lot of our shelters are not pet friendly. We can't make them pet friendly. So this is another alternative for people to be able to do that. So we're proud of that. We're also going to use that. Its primary purpose is going to be for sheltering, but Animal Services is also going to use that for a lot of their activities they do in regards to adoption and that thing, and public events they do. So it will be forward-facing a lot for the public. Generator, automatic transfer switches in our plans. One of the key things we've got to have to operate is power. And in a disaster, most times you lose power for a long time. Automatic transfer switches, generators is the way to make this work. We were notified this past week of one grant that we got, $107,000 to outfit one automatic transfer switch that we need to upfit on the building. I've got at least 2 more I would like to do, and I'd really like to put a generator on one. So we're hammering grants again to try to get more funding to help support our sheltering system again. Fire inspections, fire ordinance, and the financial process, the way we collect these. We have went through an extensive evaluation internal of our program. We met yesterday with the Department of Insurance, Office of State Farm Marshal, to review our stuff and how we're doing. They've made some recommendations. Are doing some things that they hadn't thought of that they're going to start pushing across. So we hope over the next year that we can make our fire inspection program, our fire ordinance, and our money collection a lot more robust, a lot more simplistic, and a lot more effective and efficient for our operation. Interagency radio management, we talked a little bit about that. EM does coordinate that. We coordinate it through the state office for emergency radio communications, and they're working for that now. 3 years ago, we got a grant from Duke Energy concerning our emergency markers for water and trail. The group that had to come together to make this work, we got a lot of opinions, and it took a long time to come to a consensus on the water markers. We have since purchased those. They're made. Our goal with support from wildlife and our special operations folks is to get those up before the 4th of July holiday. So what that is essentially markers on the waterway ever so often in our trouble places and our key places that we usually have issues, our dangerous places, all those will be marked. They will be mapped, and communications will be able to direct people to those coordinates based off of that marker and that marker's number and location. So we think that will help expedite our service in the water. Our intent is to do the same things in the trail. We have tried to incorporate all trails, including the state parks. There's a little bit of a hiccup in what we can do in the state park and what we can't. So we're still trying to iron out some things with that. But the goal is, and what I wrote in the grant, was that we would do this throughout the Catawba chain. So Duke Energy was all about funding that. So we partnered with McDowell, us, and Catawba, and a couple other places are putting in funds to try to help continue that throughout the Catawba chain. So we're continuously evaluating our needs in the communities, along with our organizational priorities and our strategies to direct our focus and our efforts to our most urgent needs that provide the greatest benefits. So I think the maintenance, we've already talked about that, our unsafe building identification and posting. We're moving forward with that. That's a little bit of a slow process because there's some legalities in that, but I feel great in standing here telling you that Burke County is more fire safe than it has been. So we are moving forward. Our emergency management exercises are a huge part of what we do. It's the only way that we can have an opportunity outside of a real event to test our plans and to kind of evaluate ourselves and our responders to see where we're at. So we do identify a lot of gaps when we do these, and we learn, we make changes, and we move forward. Burke County is well known for our training. We have agencies from across the state and the nation that travel here to participate in training and conduct training. We've had almost every special operations member from New York City Fire Department here doing water rescue training. We have other states come in continuously to do training here. These training events started back in the 80s and 90s with Linville Gorge Search and Rescue and extended medical programs that was developed by Burke County's own Steve Foster, Randy McKinney, former employees and responders in the county, and a lot of the tenured people in search and rescue and emergency management will tell you search and rescue is today what it is because of those men and what they did in making these programs back in the day. So we want to continue that. We want to continue to be a place where people want to come, train, and learn. I certainly agree with our statements. Bridgewater access up the top of the river is an example of that swiftwater training that you can't get anywhere else. There's nowhere else in North Carolina that they can even simulate or actually do the water rescue exercises that you can do in that stretch of the river. So we're glad to have it. We want to utilize it and make the best out of it. This year's Catawba exercise set some records for us, and from what I can find out so far, it set some records in the state. Our 2024 Catawba Flood Search and Rescue exercise, last minute, the state communications exercise, something happened, or Sponsor County dropped them. They want to know if we pick them up. I said, yeah, come on, more than merry. So we picked them up, combined them into our exercise, and that was a home run. It's a designated site exercise. It really didn't cost us anything but time to put it on. It was funded through Homeland Security Grant Program. It was conducted over a 3-day period. We had 578 personnel attend from 107 agencies. I think that's a great testament to what's available here for people. 4 different states were here and represented, and we had 1 representative from Chile here, taking what they learned back to their country. So, to my knowledge, that's the largest one in North Carolina. Nobody's found a record of any more agencies attending. We have more people, but not that many agencies, various agencies. So it's definitely the biggest emergency. I think it had a decent economic impact. A lot of them camped and stayed here. They set it up like a base camp, but I can tell you we spent a ton of money in gas and food while we were here. So if they didn't stay in the motel, they at least eat and spent money. Case Farms, we done a local internal exercise with them, May the 2nd. Learned a lot from that. It's the first time that we've been able to get together with them and do a major exercise. A lot came out of that. They're extremely happy. We got about 20 agencies participate in that, state and local, with 200 participants working that one exercise for 1 day. So we got a lot out of that. We feel like Morgan is a safer place because of it. We have an upcoming hazmat exercise at South America. That's scheduled for September the 20th, and we're about 2/3 of the way through the planning process for that. I'm about done. Our 2025 upcoming exercises, we have requested funding through Homeland Security for another flood search exercise. We think that's huge. It's beneficial. It's good for our county. It's good for our responders, and we're going to try to continue to do that annually if at all possible. Hexion has expressed an interest to do a hazardous material exercise in 2025, and We're talking about doing some other training, some other things. I know a couple years ago, we did a PM for Public Officials Conference. We're talking about doing that again, because we're having a lot of turnover and new people coming up, so we want to keep that fresh on people's minds. In addition to these that we've listed, our division participates in quarterly state emergency response team activations. These exercises are developed and guided by North Carolina Emergency Management. They open the state EOC and the scenario pulls from them. Our regional EM branches, there's 3 of those, they activate, and any county that wants to participate in it can participate in it. It's not mandatory, but we feel that it's important for us to continuously hone our skills, so we participate in all of them each year. During this exercise, we activate our emergency operations center and our emergency operation plan. We work through the scenario as Burke County if we were actually affected or supporting another affected county. So we play it for real, but it's still play. Every county division has a role in our emergency operations plan, and they are pushed out an invitation to participate if they can and have time. All of you as well, you're more than welcome on any of our activations to come see what we do. We'd love to have you come join us. Our next CERT activation will be July 9th and the 10th. So with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve our citizens in Burke County. We're proud of what we do. We do work hard. We're committed, and we're here to serve our citizens and you and support our team in Burke County. So we appreciate that. Very proud to serve, and working together we do make a difference. I believe that in my heart. Our motto, just our little thing is one team, one mission. And we're all here to work together and make things happen. And that's what we're going to do. So we sincerely appreciate your continued support for our division and for all the personnel that make Burke County great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike tonight?
Just have one comment. I just want to thank you for your dedication and your wisdom and all the hard work that you do staff.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. On behalf of the board, we do appreciate what you're doing. If there had been one more slide, we might have had to declare an emergency.
Yeah. I've been watching Brian out of the corner of my eye.
All right, this brings us to scheduled public hearings tonight. We have, first one comes from Community Development, zoning map amendment ZMA 2024-03 on the public hearing. This will be presented tonight by Alan Jones, our planning director. Evening, Alan.
Sorry about that. Good to see you all, and thank you, members of the public as well. We received in community development an application from Jason Ramsey to rezone his property with a PIN number of 2723525634 on Drexel Road. It's an undeveloped tract, so it's not been assigned an address at the time of the application. He would like to change this zoning of his property from residential 3, R3, to general business. And it's a single track on Drexel Road. This is this newer location for Settlemeyer's Nursery, and it's the track right in front of it. Kind of a busy little area through there, through Drexel. And this is the current zoning map. The properties in red are general business. The pink purple property across the street is light industrial. There's other, quite a number of different uses in that area, along with residential properties. The future land use map denotes this area as being for residential infill, but as you can see, there's quite a lot of other non-residential type properties in this area. When reviewing this request, staff have considered the blueprint for future land use, the future land use map, called a FLUM, includes both residential and general business land uses in this area, so it's expecting that kind of growth and development over time. Drexel Road is a North Carolina primary road, number 114, and it's a travel corridor, of course, between the city of Morganton and the town of Drexel. Quite a lot of different types of uses in this area, so it seems to be fitting. And any non-residential development would be subject to a site development plan and reviewed through the zoning ordinance and our site plan review committee in the future. My understanding is that Mr. Ramsey would like to expand a local business at this site, so that's why he's requesting this change. The planning board met on April 25th and were very supportive of this request for you all. I have a few photos of the area here. This is sort of along the road and at this property. I can answer any questions for you if you have any.
All right, thank you, Alan. Any questions for Alan on this stuff before I open the public hearing? All right, seeing here none, I'll open the public hearing at this time. Anyone here tonight to speak to this item? Seeing here none, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt ordinance number 2024-07 as it's related to ZMA 2024-03, a request to rezone 2.11 acres of land located at 0 Drexel Road, Valdez, North Carolina, and corresponding PIN number 2352564 from residential 3 to the general business zoning district. Our board finds the rezoning to be consistent with the intent of the future land use map because of the wide range of uses in this area, and so the map is adjusted to be general business with this tract. Furthermore, the board finds the request is reasonable in the public interest because 1, Drexel Road is a North Carolina primary road, North Carolina 114, and a main travel corridor between the city of Morganton and the town of Drexel. 2, there are existing commercial and light industrial businesses adjacent to and across the street from proposed property. And 3, the rezoning would support economic growth. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Norwood. Gentlemen, you've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Madam Clerk, let's file the zero. Thank you, Alan. This brings us to item number 2 tonight. It comes from our county manager, adoption of the fiscal year 24-25 budget and public hearing. Gentlemen, we received the budget last month, and the manager went through that in some detail, but at this time we'll entertain Mr. Epic to present the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned at our previous meeting last month, went through a much more in-depth presentation of the recommended budget for 24-25 fiscal year. Following that, the budget has been available for public inspection on our website and in 5 locations at our library and senior centers across the county government. So I want to hit more of an executive summary tonight, and just as a reminder and kind of hit the high spots of the budget that we presented last month in more detail. And obviously each of you and I have spent a lot of time together, and I appreciate your leadership and your policy setting over the last 6 months as we've worked to really craft what I think is a really good operational plan for the next 12 months. All directed and guided by your strategic plan and these specific 5 focus areas. As you drill into those focus areas, each of those, as you all know, have very measurable deliverables and led by these top priorities, all of which I feel like we're able to be centerpieces of the budget plan. Over the last 2 years since arriving here in Burke County, we've talked about really a 3-phase administrative approach of react, rebuild, and rethink. I think this budget document falls into this phase 3 rethink phase, and lots of how we do our business and the delivery of our services has been re-engineered and rethought as part of 24-25 with the goal of really focusing on purpose, trying to refine our behaviors and our actions and why we do service delivery, as well as investing into our system, our people, our human capital, our technology, building infrastructures, recognizing that having more well-oiled and refined operating system will ultimately allow us to carry out this budget plan, year policy, and serve the community in a better way. Our goal is always to pursue this idea of high performance, which is simply trying to move to the right on the spectrum of good, better, and best. So when I start tonight, just to, again, via this executive summary and recap of what was presented last month, with the idea of good, better, and best, it's always important to remind ourselves briefly where Burke County has been and some of the areas that maybe we can have some improvement and utilize the budget as a tool to sharpen that. Here, and we talked about this last month, I think it's a good indication. This is the last 10 years of county spending adjusted for inflation. So we all know that $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. In fact, in 2014, a dollar was worth 72 cents. We've had about 27.5%, almost 28% inflation over the last 10 years. So when I take actual dollars spent over the last of that 10-year period and adjust them for purchasing power and for CPI, here's the factual statement to say that the year we're operating in, we're actually spending less money than we did 10 years ago. So that speaks to efficiency enhancements, that speaks to technology, that speaks to really strong fiscal stewardship policies set by this board, and I think it helps to put it in perspective. A couple other areas of really critical public policy and public safety. Here you can see Burke County's budget in blue compared to what I would consider peer counties around the state of North Carolina that often have the similar responsibilities, and we're evaluating total spend on a per capita basis. Here you can see sheriff detention and 911, and consistently Burke County has been a lower spender. The same comparison to public education, again, a critical responsibility of county government. As you can see here, we're the orange. That's measuring our investment locally on a per pupil, per student basis, compared to the average across the state. Out of the 100, and you all know this, out of the 115 roughly local education authority or school districts in North Carolina, we've historically ranked between 98th and 100th. So in the bottom 90th percentile, and that impacts things from an operational perspective and all the way down to the individual student. Just another highlight of an area that I think we can see some improvement we've really been working on is in our enterprise funds, water, sewer, and solid waste. These, as you all know, are statutory, set up by the General Assembly, and are designed to be supported very, very similar to a for-profit business, meaning that their revenues are intended to cover all operational costs, all out-year deferred maintenance costs. And when that doesn't happen, that puts additional pressure on the general fund, the county's primary operating fund, on the property tax rate. And what we've seen cumulatively here in Burke County over the last 4 or 5 years is operational losses that created this subsidy that, again, put some pressure. And those really, outside of just, as we talked about that spectrum of good, better, and best, those are opportunities for some significant improvement that I think will ultimately lead to a more effective and efficient administration of our services. So moving to the 24-25 budget that you've all now seen for the last 30 days, we've talked about being responsible in the approach and recession ready. There's some market indicators that are uncertain, and during these periods of uncertainty, we certainly try to rely on data, and we try to make sure that we're diversifying so that we're not over-leveraged and having any type of concentration risk. For example, this year, we all know the primary theme of this budget was being able to mitigate some of these financial disruptions that simply weren't predictable and were outside of our control. Cumulatively, about $3 million, and as broad as the macroeconomics for the value of used car prices and how that impacts our tax base, other legislative revenue changes for the percentage of Medicaid costs that happen in Burke County. Something this board doesn't impact, the county staff can't impact in any way, cost the county's general fund about $3 million. So to be able to improve service delivery, absorb that loss, and continue to you know, perform at a high level, I think is really the overarching theme of the budget that you're considering. The general fund has about $109.2 million. That's an increase of 2.8%. I would point out that in the past, the gap looks bigger year over year than that, but that's because this year, the 1983 session law that was put Article 39 and Article 40 sales tax in a separate fund has been repealed, and I think that was really good policy. So that's now embedded in the general fund. So it makes it look a little bit different, but the total revenue growth is about 2.8%. This is just looking at average revenue growth year over year, going back about 10 or 11 years. And you can see the average is about 3.5. This year inflation was roughly 4. We grew at 2.8, so we were not only lower than inflation, but we were also experiencing lower revenue growth than traditional years. When you look at the total revenue portfolio, again, that $109.2 million is broken down across these functional areas. Property tax, sales tax, and restricted intergovernmental continue to be our top three. That's pretty common in most counties in North Carolina. I would like to point out that this was your second budget post the 2023 revaluation. So the revaluation started last year, but leads in to this year. And as a reminder, this board was able to reduce the property tax rate 20% last year. You moved your property tax rate from 69.5 cents to 56 cents. That was a 13.5 cent reduction, roughly 20%. And as you can see here, the blue bar is the percentage of tax rate reduction for all taxing entities in our county. And this board certainly was the leader there. And by moving to 56 cents, to establish the 28th lowest taxing rate in North Carolina. So congratulations for that. I mentioned that revenue growth was about 2.8% this year. About 55%, 56% of our total revenue comes from property tax. So this is a measure of our property tax base. The base generates revenue capacity, and we really saw little to no growth this year. 1.74% was all that our property tax base grew this year, and that's an indication of local development, which had some stagnation. Some of that's construction costs, some of that's borrowing rates, some of that's just a little bit of energy gap into the local development economy. But that produced about $974,000 of new property tax revenue, which is less than 1%, again, compared to a 4% cost of operational inflation increase. Made a little bit of a challenge. The recommended tax rate next year's budget is 56 cents. I would point out across the state average across the other 99 counties is 64.5, so we're able to operate at a lower rate comparatively. And you can see here, last year, being able to move from 69.5 to 56 is what got us to that point. The budget adopted on about a 98% tax rate, which is very responsible and conservative based on our historical collection percentages. Here I've just looked at some of the surrounding counties and I've compared their population along with their property tax rates for 23, 24, 22, 20, and then this would be their tax and levy per capita. This is a good indication of what is the average amount that a property taxpayer in the county may have to pay. And I share this to say, you can see here this peer average is a fairly good comparable with population size. Tax rates are pretty similar, but this average levy per capita per person, we're significantly lower, about $622. And I think a good example of what that is, like for Catawba County, they have a 39.85 tax rate. That seems much lower, 18 cents lower than our 56. But there, the average taxpayer still pays $716 compared to our $622. So again, I think it's important to recognize that even though the rate didn't change, the opposite end of that spectrum is what are we asking our consumers and our taxpayers to contribute to fund local government. On the expenditure side of the house, human services, education, public safety continue to be the three largest functions. This is an indication in the optic that roughly 30 cents of every dollar we spend goes to public safety, so forth and so on for these other functional areas. We talk a lot about making sure that the value exceeds the price. We try to have that entrepreneurial type lens where we're a constant reflection of what we're offering versus what we're required to fund, what is our funding level. You all have seen this option many times, but this is just demonstrated with what is teeing up your 24-25 budget for the departments that we're required to offer, be it the North Carolina Constitution and statutory, versus services that we're authorized to offer to try to make improvements and support the community. But cumulatively, all of those add up to roughly $620 per person. Here I've simply compared at a functional level, again, the spend plan compared to some of our peers. So for example, in public safety, Burke County spends about $204 per person, and you can see how that compares to some of our peers with an average of $379, and for education, and so forth and so on. Overall, the budget for next year, 73% of that is going to people, 24% is to operations, and 3% to capital. Again, you can see how that compares at a baseline level. To highlight the general fund, it was the second year that we started at a zero-based budget. And I want to just really say thank you to our department heads. That's a lot more work. That's opposed to incremental budgeting, which is last year plus 2% or last year plus something. We really scrutinized the base of our budget, and that's allowed us over the last 2 years to reduce this operational component of our budget by cumulatively about $500,000. The budget has one additional FTE. Our department heads asked for 33, which had a $1.7 million cost. The recommended budget includes one FTE, that's an environmental health specialist in the public health department. We're staying committed to our capital plan, full implementation of our pain classification study. I am very excited that we've been able to support our senior services and put for the first time ever in the history of Burke County government an additional $50,000 in Meals on Wheels. That's going to start to slowly articulate a long wait list. That's as we start talking about leveraging public policy to make a difference in people's lives, that's certainly something that this budget is able to deliver. Public education and community college were able to meet their needs. We'll talk about that more in just a moment. And lastly, I think that it's critical to say that this budget was operating inside of all of the very responsible fiduciary policies that this board has set for the financial framework. Our fire departments, as you know, we have 21 of them. The average rate is 10.6 cents. That's $6.7 million is allocated across those fire departments. And for next year, no rate changes, and the average revenue increase per unit is about $8,800. I mentioned public schools and being able to consider their funding needs for next year. Last year, this board added these focus areas to your strategic plan of improving our competitiveness and operational funding. We know that we're in the bottom 90th percentile. And that lack of funding has led to a lagging contribution to people's local teachers' salaries and local school employee salaries, as well as growing the number of teachers who are on staff, which drives up student-teacher ratios in the classroom. As a reminder, last year this board increased cash flow to the school system by $3.7 million. That's 25%. So in the same budget that you reduced the tax rate by 20%, you increased public education by 25%. Here's just a rough reconciliation of how that $20 million is allocated. Almost 50% of it goes to people. So that's the real nuts and bolts of how this funding can impact operation for the public school board. And this is the kind of cause and effect impact that you're able to make. We know that investment has seen local teacher supplements go up to 63%. Significant impact, which will help with improvement and retention of classroom teachers. And we also know your second goal was ratios, and Burke County was operating at a 16.5 to 1 student-teacher ratio. And out of the peer groups that we're looking at across these other LEAs, Burke County is the only one who's seeing an improvement. So those goals are really coming to fruition. Moving into next year, we've had a very pedestrian increase of 1.5%, $250,000, moving that allocation to $20,250,000. We'll see some improvement in our local per pupil rank from 96 to 94. Still got some work to do. I would point out the local fund balance on the school board is about 14%. So they're going to be able to maintain momentum, and we've worked hard with CFO and Dr. Swan to make sure that their needs will be met with this level of funding. Western Piedmont Community College will see basically an inflationary offset. We were able to meet their request, $150,000, 5%. When we look at what roughly 3.6 cents on our general fund tax rate goes to community college, we know that we compare favorably, and we're pleased that we're able to make the appropriate allocation for the community college workforce training and higher education. Lastly, in our two utility funds, starting with solid waste, the solid waste fund is probably the most dynamic example of re-engineering and rethinking county government that we're able to present by insourcing municipal solid waste transport and beginning to compact and handle our own recyclables. We're going to see somewhere in the $1 to $1.2, $1.3 million financial turnaround in that fund, primarily by cost reduction and re-engineering. And as I talked about earlier, it's been a long time since this fund is self-sustaining. When you look across the state, there's 44 municipal solid waste landfills, and they have to not only run operations, which is labor and fuel, equipment, all those things, but you also have to be planning about post-closure environmental monitoring and all of the residual environmental costs that come with maintaining safe solid waste management. So, very pleased with where our team was able to land with this budget. On the water sewer side, similar type story, as you all know, we're running an AIA study so that we can map and appropriately diagnose and understand our infrastructure in the ground. We're working on what I call spoilage or water loss to try to maximize our revenue, control our spend, but we're confident that next year's budget will also, similar to solid waste, be the first time in a long time that the water sewer fund has been self-sustaining and not add that unnecessary pressure to the general fund, which ultimately, hopefully, will lead to some system expansion, which will help with housing, help with clean water access, and some of those other critical needs in the community. I'll leave you with these thoughts before we conduct a public hearing. There's a litany of emerging, what I would call emerging issues that really there's no way to attach a cost to. They aren't reflected in the budget, but we know as we navigate your strategic plan, as we try to deliver service and improve this community in the way that we can, that there's things we have to be aware of. So I'll use at the very top this psychiatric residential treatment facility. Those are state-funded behavioral institutions where troubled youth often go, and there is an epidemic across the state of foster children who are being turned away. So foster children with significant behavioral issues, developmental issues that are already experiencing significant trauma, who because of low staffing and lack of funding at a state level are being turned away from these institutions, and they maintain that custody is required to be maintained by the county. So that leads to young people sleeping often inside the building with social services, and this is going on all across the state, which means you have social workers working 24/7 around the clock, these high needs youth, and there's a cost with that. And how do you assign a cost to that? How do you prepare and plan for that? It's a real challenging question, but it's one example of an emerging issue that we're navigating and trying to keep our hands and pulse on, because at the end of the day, it impacts our fiscal plan, but we also have that incredible responsibility and duty of taking care of those young people. There's a similar story for each of those items up there, and I put it as a talking point just to remind us that it's not all about things that we always can control and assign a specific dollar to. Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll answer any questions you or the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that recap of the budget. Gentlemen, any questions for Tom before I open the public? All right, seeing here none, this time I will open the public hearing. Do we have anyone here tonight who would like to speak to our proposed budget? All right, seeing here none, this time I'll close the public hearing. And gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the revised 24-25 budget ordinance 2024-08 as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I vote that we make the motion we adopt the revised fiscal year 24-25 budget ordinance number 2024-08 as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Those in favor signify by the hand. And it's 5-0. And let me say there are a number of motions necessary tonight to go through the budget process. So ask the audience to bear with us just a moment as we navigate through these list of motions. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve a memorandum of agreement between Burke County and the Burke County Board of Education for fiscal year 24-25.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between Burke County and the Burke County Board of Education for fiscal year 24-25.
Those in favor, signify by lifting the hand. 5-0. I'll now entertain a motion to approve funding for nonprofits as set forth in the fiscal year 24-25 budget, except for BDI and VETI at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion to approve funding for nonprofits as set forth in the fiscal year 24-25 budget, except for work development, Inc. and VETI.
Thank you, Mr. Carswell. Those in favor, signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. At this time, because I sit on the BDI board, I will ask to be recused from this next vote, which will be involving the BDI. So I'll entertain a motion that I be recused from the vote on BDI funding.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor, signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. And I'll ask Vice Chair Morley to take this next motion.
Mr. Chairman, as recused himself, the gentleman, I'll entertain a motion to execute funding to BDI for FY25.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, I'll make that motion to execute funding to BDI for fiscal year 25.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. All those in favor signify with uplifted hand. Motion carried 4-0, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Back to the gentleman. Mr. Chairman.
All right. At this time, because Mr. Morley sits on the VETI board, we'll ask that he be recused from voting on this next vote that involves the VETI board. So I entertain a motion to recuse Vice Chair Morley from the vote on VETI funding.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recuse Vice Chairman Mulvey from the vote on the VETIC funding.
Those in favor, signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. This time I'll entertain a motion to execute funding for VETI for fiscal year 25.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we execute funding for VETIC for fiscal year 24-25.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Those in favor, signify by the uplifted hand. That is 4-0. Madam Clerk. Is that a hand, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
All right, now this brings us to capital project orders. We'll be back, everybody voted here, a motion to approve capital project orders for the following projects.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the capital project ordinances for the following projects: courthouse renovation number 2024-09, County Parks and Trails number 2024-10, the Indian Hills Pump Station 2024-11, and the Eastern Burke County Elementary School 2024-12.
Mr. Carswell, those in favor, signify by the uplifted hand. That is 5-0. All right. Finishes up our budget votes. Before we move on to item number 8, which is informal public comments, let me say to our manager and all of our staff, thank you for a job well done through the budget process. As most of you know, it began earlier in the year, back in February, March, along in there, and probably for some before that. And let me say on behalf of the board, our appreciation to all of our department heads, all of our employees, and we understand that there was a lot of requests that we couldn't fund, but I think we all agree this is a reasonable and respectable budget, and again, thank you for all that you guys have done, and will do through the coming year to make this budget a great reality. So that brings us to informal public comments tonight. I will, at this time, open the floor, and we have 2 registered folks tonight to speak. Mr. Locke Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman, if you'll state your name and address, and I'll remind you have 3 minutes for public comment. Thank you for being here.
To speak about homosexuality in the Burke County Library. Not the books, No book has ever jumped off the shelf to molest somebody. Parents should be responsible for monitoring their children's reading read, but the problem is with the administration and some of the people who've been hired to work in the library. This problem is not confined to Burke. This is rather a kind of conspiracy by homosexuals to take over whole public library systems, at least in North and South Carolina. Now, some of these deviants do a good job, but in some places, like right here, the completely unsupervised director has been too busy hiring his butt buddies to do the job properly. And people have noticed. I have dropped in on children's programs in all three branches. In each case, have observed a program combined of 2 or 3 children, and maybe a parent, plus a library assistant. 2 does not a program make. It's a tutoring session, which is not necessarily bad, but not right or effective either. Why do parents not want their children in the library? I submit, though they probably cannot express or are afraid to express their feelings, parents sense that something is very wrong in the Burke system, that there are deviants with way too little to do being paid to hang around. The fact is, the media have been lying to us about homosexual behavior in general. Sure, there's a tiny minority who are born that way, but the overwhelming majority, sodomy is learned behavior. For the fact is, homosexuals do groom, they do recruit, and they do seduce. I know this from personal experience. Well, unless you count spending $1 million a year to run a boys' club, there have been no problem or incidents yet that I know of. But if something terrible happens, you're probably in the clear. After all, none of you has ever been to the library because it's not important. Been to a public library? Either you haven't been or you won't admit it. I don't know which. I was puzzled about the 23 authorized for library security, $23,000. But it's occurred to me, maybe the policeman's in the library not to protect the library assistants from the homeless, but to protect the children from some of the library assistants. Let me remind you what happened in Hildebrand Elementary about 10 years ago. Multiple students were sexually molested and their lives forever changed and not for the better. However, don't worry. Except for the actual perpetrator, none of the responsible individuals was punished. Not one of the 5 school principals paid a price, though all of them seemed to have noticed something was very wrong. No one outed the perpetrator, rather they just passed him on to the next school. Nor did the school members take responsibility. The school board, well, don't be ridiculous. Did the county personnel director, was it Steve Demeter, did he lose his job? But don't worry, be happy. Under no circumstances are you going to be held to account for running $1 million boys club. Just keep on keeping on. Nobody's told you about this, right?
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Thank you. Carla Kincaid.
Good evening, everyone. Carla Kincaid. I am just here this evening in honor of tomorrow. We'll be celebrating Juneteenth. And for those of you that are not familiar, Juneteenth is the day that Texas, after the Civil War ended in 1866, Juneteenth commemoration spread around the United States to honor the end of slavery in the country. It became a federal holiday June 2021, and thanks in part to the long-time efforts of activist Oprah Lee. In addition, I wanted to just say recently, last Friday, that Oprah Lee, who is now 97 years old, she was responsible. I think I did bring that into play last time I was here, that she was honored at the White House, and when the day was actually given for the holiday for Juneteenth. And she was given keys on last Friday for her a new home, which was built on the same tree line corner lot in Fort Worth that her family was driven from by a racist mob when she was 12. And that happened on Juneteenth. This Juneteenth night will be the 85th anniversary of the day a mob angered that a black family had moved in the neighborhood. gathered outside her home, and her parents had bought in a neighborhood that they weren't welcome. And as the crowd grew, her parents sent her and her sibling, she was 12 at the time, to a friend's house several blocks away, and then eventually left themselves. And at that time, they said the mob grew to about 500 people, broke windows in the house, and dragged furniture out into the street and smashed her. She and her family did return to the house, and her parents never talked about what happened that day, and that happens a lot in family, and a lot of black history in the family goes down the drain that way. Instead, they just wanted to work in order to buy another home. Lee said it wasn't something she dwelled on either, but in recent years, she began thinking of trying to buy that lot back. And after learning that Trinity Habitat for Humanity had bought the land, she called that CEO and her longtime friend. And it was not until that call that several years ago, when Lee asked if she could buy the lot, that she learned the story of what happened to her family on June 19th, 1939. So you don't give up on your dreams. And she didn't really know about it. A lot of black families don't like to talk about a lot of black history, including Juneteenth. It's something new to Burke County. And the lot was sold to her. They sold that lot to her for $10. She got the lot back. It was something happened on June 19th. And I just wanted to honor her today and what she did. And she was able to get back by not sitting down, but standing up for what she believed in, even though she was 12 years old at that time. All right, thank you for allowing us to celebrate here in Burke County. We'll continue our celebration tomorrow, which is June 19th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kincaid. All right, that's all the public speakers we have registered tonight. I'll close this public comment period. This will bring us to item number 9, consent agenda. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several items for consideration. Beginning with item 1, which is a recommendation from the Burke Council on Aging for the 2024-2025 Home and Community Care Block Grant, total amount of $669,313. And they have submitted the recommendation for the allocation of those funds. Item 2 is from the clerk, and that's for an appointment or reappointment to the Western Piedmont Community College Board of Trustees. In your packet for review. Item 3 also from the clerk is an appointment removal from the JCPC board. Item 4 from community development, as presented at your pre-agenda meeting, is the Patty Street Trail parking easement agreement. Item 5 is from the Register of Deeds office, and this is the resolution so that we can start setting up training for Board of Commissioner appointed plat review officers. Item 6 is approval of the FY 23-24 year-end budget amendment. That's number 15. That is the budget amendment that also allocates the state grants to our volunteer fire departments that you're aware of. Item 7 is a resolution that will be adopted jointly with the City of Morganton in the 1997 agreement, where the city and the county were two parties there for Crescent Point. Item 8 is your collection report from the tax department for May 2024, and item 9 is your release and refund report from the tax department for May 2024. Mr. Chairman, that concludes consent. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Any questions on these items?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All those in favor, signify by the uplifted hand. 5-0. All right, this brings us to item number 10, items for decision. Have one item tonight. It comes from the county manager, approval of courthouse construction contract. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, a project that you've been made aware of for some time, included in your 5-year capital improvement plan. Tonight, the contract for design and build is before you for consideration and approval. We've reviewed it along with the county attorney. As you recall, the Burke County Courthouse for some time has been in need of repair. We approached this project with a couple of very simple goals. One, we want to decompress some space. So we have really limited number of courtrooms. The district attorney's wing has been stay out of space and confined for some time to the point where they have investigative files lining their hallway. Their office, as you all know, if there is a change in our districts, likely will grow with additional staff, which they don't have the space to do. So the space decompression idea, not to mention the clerk who really acted as a project lead on this project, and we're so incredibly thankful for her leadership, really confined space, and that is a high civic spot, a high civic activity area. So we wanted to really decompress the space, at the same time investing into some infrastructure of the building and the building envelope, things like roofing, things like HVAC, some of the mechanics and the bones of the building. As you'll recall, we received a grant in 2021 from the United States General Assembly for over $1 million. We paired with that federal grant for another 1.5, and so we have a total project in front of you of $2.65 million with beam construction. As you all are aware, again, we've been through a design build model, which is we engaged with Holland Hammer for the design team. They brought on beams. We presented this contract for review. We put together a steering team many months ago that involved law enforcement as they provide security to the building. The district attorney, we had our resident superior and district court judges that are both part of it. And then I can't say enough about Clerk what she and her team have done to really lead and make decisions. But I'm confident in the contract proposal in front of you that we are going to decompress this space. We're going to achieve a courtroom. We're going to move the district attorney's office to the bottom floor and use a space that hasn't been used in years. Utilize the full footprint, elongate the life of this building with a new roof and some HVAC mechanical, and do all of that without using any local dollars, all grant funded. So very proud of where we turned out with this project. No Christmas here, if there's more logistical questions about what we've been able to accomplish, but I think we can say with confidence that it's a very productive and really positive turnout of what we tried to do at the onset. So to answer any questions, ma'am.
Any questions on this item? Seeing here none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize the county manager to finalize and execute the design build contract with Beam Construction Company for $2,650,000 on behalf of the board, subject to review and or revisions by the county attorney.
Thank you. All those in favor, signify by lifting the hand. 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Manager. This brings us to item number 11, reports and comments, and I'll open the court this time, and I'll start down there with Ms. Martin.
No comments tonight, sir. Glad that the budget was approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Turner.
Nothing for me tonight. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, tomorrow is my dearly beloved's birthday, and I'd like to wish him a happy birthday early.
Nothing.
I'd like to thank the county manager and his team and all the county employees and department supervisors that helped negotiate this budget. I think they did a great job on it. I appreciate the county manager's efforts. I also appreciate Clerk of Court, Crystal Carpenter, and her team by bringing us a renovation plan with the county manager that we can approve, and absolutely no local funds will be spent on it. I appreciate that.
A couple quick things to mention. June 29th at Quaker Meadows Presbyterian Church, they're going to hold a law enforcement appreciation retreat. My understanding is they've opened that up this morning to all emergency service personnel. So I would encourage any of you guys who can attend that to attend. Also want to mention that we had a group of kids in Burke County leave early Sunday morning for 4-H camp. They're down on the coast having a good time. I've got a couple of pictures this week, and I remember getting to go to camp as a kid, and it's a big deal, and I'm just glad that they got to go. The other thing I kind of wanted to mention, if I'm not mistaken, in reference to our budget, this is only like the third time in 15 years that we've had a unanimous vote on budget. And as I poured through this document, you could see the innovative approach that was taken to everything. I love the zero balance beginning. I want to echo Mr. Smith's comments and just say thank you to the county manager, department heads, staff. Commissioner Britton, Chairman Britton had mentioned earlier, you didn't get everything you wanted, but you definitely got everything you needed, I think, and then some. And I do want to say thank you to our clerk of court for being here tonight. And, she's had a strong vision for what that courthouse needed since the day she took office. And we're excited to be able to make that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just I don't want to repeat what Phil and Randy said, but it's been an honor on this upcoming budget. Y'all have done an amazing job. As you said, we've had some challenging times. We started out $3 million in the hole, which is roughly 3 cents like sales tax, to give you a kind of a rough estimate. And so we were able not to raise taxes. We were able to absorb the loss with the general fund that we've been carefully building for several years in anticipation of rough weather, which we're experiencing right now economically. As a financial advisor, you can see it coming and can anticipate, but you don't know how severe and how long it will be. So we're in good fiscal shape to ride this thing out. And I also say that, we put plans in place several years ago. We brought on a grant writer, and you heard Mike Willis earlier talk about the many grants they've got, millions of dollars in grants. And if you have a good grant writer, she literally saves your organization millions and millions of dollars. Those funds come from elsewhere, but not here locally. So that's helped us with capital projects and absorb some other things and divert monies to be use our money very wisely. And then I do want to thank specifically our budget team, not because everybody else I think as well, but we've got some new folks from last year. We brought in some budget specialists. You'll say, well, what do they do? Well, they identified several $1 million in our enterprise funds and came up with unique ways to save us money, the organization money going forward. And so you have a budget analyst along with our county manager that can spend the time and effort to go in and really understand where we can identify cost savings. So they've been able to do that. So between grant writing, budget specialists have identified cost savings, this is why the budget is where it is today. So I did want to mention that. But more importantly, I want to thank everybody for their support. I was gone last month. I'm a grandfather for the first time. So I'd be remiss. She was going to be stubbornly late the rest of her life. She was 12 days late when she was born. And my daughter lives in England, so we were gone 4 weeks. And so she does have dual citizenship. So if she wants to run for office, guys, she can still do it. But I do want to thank, her name's Ella Caroline Roden, so I did want to mention her. So thank you for all your support and understanding.
Mr. Butler? I don't know where to begin with what I want to say tonight. This is my 13th budget. I think that's more than anybody on this board. And I'd have to say this is the best budget, Brian, that I've ever looked at. Common sense was applied. We throw these terms around conservative all the time. You can't have a conservative budget. You've got to have a common sense budget. One that plans for the future. One that plans for the sheriff to be able to hire people and retain people. One that has to give the clerk of court the opportunity to build a building over there that we can survive. We went through a lot for the last 13 years. The three of us have been through a lot for the last 12 years together. It takes a long time to put a budget together. It takes a long time to put an organization together. It's absolute lunacy to sit there and say, cut taxes, cut taxes, cut taxes. It can't be done. I mean, you can sit up here as a board and tell your county manager to cut 10, he'll have to cut 10. But if you're up here to do the job that you were elected to do, you won't run around saying all those things that you have to say. This will be my last budget, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it is. So I want to commend you, my friend. You go in there, like I asked you the other day, where'd you find $500,000 at? And you said, well, I looked and I found it. It takes good common sense to do things like that. I appreciate your support. You just don't know how much I've seen over the last years. It's not all been good and it's not all been bad, but we've done what we're supposed to do. Thank you guys for coming to Legislative Day down in Raleigh the other day. We got to sit there and tell people in the General Assembly what we think, how to do it at home. They can't seem to do it at Raleigh. They sure can't do it in Washington, but they have a hard time doing it in Raleigh. But we can do it here. We can have a zero-based budget. So thank you coming to Legislative Day. We got some problems out there. LMEs, MCOs, Jeff, I sent all of you a letter. I have a true concern about LME, MCOs, so don't let that die on us. Opportunity scholarships that the General Assembly wants to push through. They've set aside a lot of money for opportunity scholarships that will take money away from our public schools. Public schools are not bad. They educated a lot of us. We have to think about that. We have a new bill going through, the House Bill 246, PBM bill, that's pharmacy benefit managers. Gentlemen, we got 9 local pharmacies in Burke County. If this bill does not go through, all of those 9 pharmacies probably will go out of business. I don't know what you're going to do about your prescription drugs. CVS's and others will be charging you a lot more money than what you're paying now for 9 local pharmacies that do the best they can to stay in business. That's a loss of tax revenue. That's a loss of jobs if these 9 pharmacies go out of business. Mike Willis, I guess you sleep every 3rd day, don't you, with the report that you gave to us. I can say that through my travels around the state of North Carolina, we have the best emergency services department in the state of North Carolina, and it's because of Mike Willis and the work that he does, because he cares. Burke County cares about its people. He cares about the job that we all were elected to do. I hope that continues on. Thank every one of you department heads. Thank you for what you do for the people of this county. It's a great organization. This county does good work. We've got good people. Kay, you've been with me from a long run. I appreciate you for that. Mr. Chairman, I could probably go on, but I'll stop there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carswell. Several mentions of grants, and in fact, this last week or two has been pretty successful with grants. So, Mr. Manager, do you have that on the top of your head you can just share with us?
See how I can do. So the most substantial federal grant for the federal BRIC grant, which is $2.4 million, that our team has been working on for the better part of 2 years, a ridiculously competitive grant that will fund a sewer pump station replacement for Indian Hills, which is our most critical sewer pump station, and something that would have been required for local dollars to go into. There's another roughly $1 million state grant to pair with that, so it'll be a $3.5 million project that we've already began working on. That'll be paired against federal and state grant. We received a $107,000 grant in emergency management from Mike and his team to do some planning. And then we received $255,000 and I know the Public Health Department and the Sheriff's Department worked hard on that, for medicated assisted treatment in jail, which will be a really innovative approach to helping manage behavior, but also manage addiction and dependency in the jail. And I think that is really critical. We also received a $10,000 grant to help fund phase 1 of the America 250 committee that this board has created and appointed. That'll be for advertising and marketing. So our team, as a matter of fact, they met today. We have implemented quarterly committee meetings for our budget team and our grant writing team. We meet with every department head on a quarterly basis to understand needs and to be really aggressive in these competitive processes. Because, as the board has said, there's ways to fund your operational plan, your vision, your policy outside of just local dollars. And so I think that's just a brief snapshot of the last week and a half. And we're working as hard as we can to find more opportunities. So thank you for the opportunity to highlight that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Manager. Again, these things don't happen by accident. We've got a great team in place. They're working together. And again, thanks to everyone for what you're doing.
Jim, I'd like to say, if you don't mind, something else. Commissioner Carswell and a couple of them touched on there. Might be a couple things in this budget that I don't agree with. totally, and all of you too, but I'll be dadgummed if I'm gonna throw the baby out with the bathwater because I don't agree with one or two things on there. And I think I'm probably about as conservative as anybody in this room. And again, I appreciate you and everybody that worked on that budget. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move on now to some courtesy reminders. There's a number of things going on. There'll be no pre-agenda meeting of this board in July and August, so keep that in mind. We'll be meeting, of course, with the manager and keeping up with things, but will not be a pre-agenda meeting as we normally have in July or August. We'll have our regular meeting and act on items at those meetings as we normally would. July 4th, county offices, landfill, and convenience centers will be closed in observance of Independence Day. July 15th, the interbasin transfer public meeting will be happening right here in Morganton at Common at the Performing Arts Center there on College Street. I would encourage anyone that has interest in that subject to come out and let folks over in Charlotte know we think a lot of our water. July the 16th, the Board of Commissioners regular meeting at 6 p.m. Again, looking for youth groups interested in leading our Pledge of Allegiance. We'd love for you to see the clerk, or you can sign up via our website. Again, reminder, our animal services folks, keep up with your pets, spay and neuter, foster or adopt pets at our Animal Services Center. Another reminder, cover your trash and loads. We're doing a lot of work throughout the county picking up trash. They wouldn't have to pick it up if it was covered and didn't blow out of your vehicle along the way. So again, take care of your trash, don't litter, and take a moment to pick up. And if you have an area that needs some special attention, we have a link on our website at www.nc.org that you can report those areas, and we can try to make some special efforts in those areas. And as Ms. Kincaid reminded us, tomorrow is the federal holiday, June the 19th, and for Juneteenth. And man, I was at our Council of Governments meeting this week, and all of our local governments in the area, there's just all kinds of Juneteenth celebrations going on. Some have already occurred, some will be occurring over the next few days. So I encourage you to pay attention if you'd like to be a part of any of those. Please remember that. And as Paula reminded us, it commemorates the last enslaved African Americans in Texas learned that they had been freed over 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued. So remember that day tomorrow. All right, this brings us to item number 12, vacancy announcements. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. We have the following opportunities for citizens to be engaged in county boards and committees: the Adult Care and Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee, City of Morganton Board of Adjustment and Planning Board for the ETJ areas, the Burke County Board of Health, Hickory Regional Planning Commission, Drexel Planning Board ETJ alternate, the Burke County Board of Adjustment, and the Burke County Planning Board.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Lots of opportunity there for working in our community. If you're interested, please get with the clerk or find a application to let us know your interest in one of those areas. This brings us to item 13, closed session. We do have need for closed session tonight to prevent the disclosure of privileged or confidential information, discuss threatened or pending litigation, to preserve the attorney-client privilege, to discuss economic development matters, to discuss contractual matters, to discuss personnel matters. Gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Does that suit you, Madam Clerk? You want me to read all that other stuff? Good to go. All right. All right. With that, we'll have just a moment of a brief recess before we get into closed session.
Need a vote?
Yes, ma'am, we certainly do. All those in favor of that indicate by your uplifted hand. That's 5-0. Thank you very much. We'll recess for just a minute, and then we'll continue in closed session. consider ourselves back in the open session, having completed the closed session, and I will announce that we did take action in closed session on 14 sets of closed session meeting minutes. They were approved and received. With that, gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. No, thank you very much.